in the video game world, when you're doing co-op, you're not competing with each other. It's not like when like old NES Life Force where there's a score there, kind of keeping track. Like, is it just for the story experience, or just trying to get to the end kind of thing?
So,
What's the reward of playing a co-op game with two
well,
people?
that's the funny thing is a lot of these co-op games also include versus modes or
Right.
PvP modes, player
Yeah.
versus player. Uh, with Destiny, so Destiny is it's like I said, it's a co-op shooter, co-op first-person shooter with a lot of MMO and RPG elements in it. You're essentially these kind of space warriors. The backstory is in the future, this giant metal sphere appears above Mars, and when humans decide to send a few astronauts to go investigate, they realize that the sphere is actually escaping this darkness. That's the big enemy. It's the darkness.
Right.
They don't ever explain what the darkness is. They just says it's escape. It's trying to get away from the darkness because it's going to kill it.
Right.
It's
Right.
the darkness and the light. So this giant sphere they call the traveler, and they call it they actually say little little shards of it that get distributed called light of the traveler. So it's you can think of it as the darkness and the light. So this traveler is the light, and so when they meet this traveler, it kind of it imparts a lot of its knowledge for the human race, and they have like this golden age where they discover things like new technology, warp drives, better space travel. They also discover powers, so you have like space wizards. Space wizards just being
Space wizards.
space wizards. These are just like, I mean, they call them space wizards, but in the lore they call them warlocks. They're able to do things like they can build massive energy bombs, things like that. They also have hunters who can cloak. They're kind of like predators where they hunt things. Of course, they're hunters. So they have cloaking devices like that, and then they have your traditional space marine, which is just they call them the Titan. It is your traditional space marine, massive armor. You can take a beating, and you have really cool. Each class has different powers. And the way this plays is you get groups of three,
Right.
and you go out and you similar to an MMO, you just go out to an area and you do quests. And then to answer your question, uh, there is no scoreboard.
Right.
They do track stats like who had the most headshots, who had the most revives, but the point of co-oping is uh, uh, you're able to tackle bigger and bigger challenges. There's also raids where you actually have two teams of three.
Right.
So you do 6 man a giant like raid level. But really the end game of it is really to kind of it's similar to MMO where you're just farming for better gear, you're farming for better guns, you're farming for better armor, better stats, things like that. But they do keep track of stats as far as like headshots and things like that. But not a lot of people take that too seriously. But just like Dungeons and Dragons and any other tabletop game, you also have those people who are very into that. Okay, I want to be the best. I want to have the most headshots. I want to have the most. I want to have the highest score possible.
Right.
So it just really, I mean, both things have their uh, sticklers to stats and things like that. But that's the fun thing with these. I think the main draw with games like Destiny and the Division is that you're playing with your friends and you're kind of hitting these big moments. So like, perfect example is I always play as a Titan, and the Titan has this thing called the Titan bubble, and it's just this giant energy shield that comes around whenever you want it. You trigger it. That's your
Right.
super. That's your super move. You trigger it, and the Titan just throws his arms out, and they put up this giant energy bubble. And the energy bubble has different aspects. Like one of them gives you an overshield. It gives you extra armor. Another one, it can give you better, higher weapon damage. So the appeal of these games is that you're playing with your friends and you're kind of hitting these really cool moments of okay, you're going up against this giant wave of enemies and everyone's down and let's say you're really low on health. The time just comes out and just protects everyone with the giant bubble.
Right. Right.
And so like everyone revives, everyone gets up, and then they start fighting again. It's kind of like you're almost gonna die in the movie where you're like the hero's almost gonna die and everything's really desperate and
Like heal.
heal, and then everyone just gets up. And so these kind of like big moments that you can create with your friends, and I think that's what these games mirror. These games are kind of marrying these different genres of MMOs and co-op and shooter and like Division is third person shooter. They're kind of trying to create these big moments of, okay, you're having these big battles, these special like intimate moments with other players, things like that. They're trying to recreate that on the console because honestly, before Destiny came around, you really didn't really have a lot of those moments. I mean, there was a few games that attempted to
Right.
do it, but it wasn't really huge or epic
Right.
and Destiny's a very big, I would consider it a space opera.
Right.
So
Right.
you're gonna have these really big shining moments, and it's really great. When you experience these, because you can tell like your entire team went through this entire fight together.
Right.
There's a few times where I would run a raid, and like when everybody was on point doing their job for the raid, everything just clicked. Like,
Right.
you had people. I always like playing support, so I was always healing people. I was always rezzing them. I was always putting up the Titan bubble, giving everybody defense so they wouldn't get down. You had hunters that were
Right.
doing sniper shots, and then you had the space wizards who were just throwing giant nova bombs and trying to blow everything up. And everybody's working together, and it's cool when you see it in action because you're in first person, but then you'll see your buddies kind of shoot you're kind of crossing lines of sight and you're shooting people behind you.
Like,
uh
I mean, like, so when I was playing, I kind of did a like experiment with MMORPGs just to see if I liked them.
mm,
Didn't really like them. One of my biggest complaint is that, well, you kind of just go there and like everyone's clicking on things, and then, you see their arms moving about, shooting stuff or
yeah.
shooting guns, and it was really cluttered looking. Now, how like in Destiny, how like is that more dramatic?
Destiny would, yeah, it would be a lot more dramatic. So kind of picture any first person shooter.
Yeah.
Let's say take Medal of Honor
Right.
for instance.
Yeah.
Like you've seen the Medal of Honor
Yeah.
level where they jump on Omaha Beach. Now
Hmm.
imagine something like that where you're just getting bombarded with all these bullets. You have all these enemies shooting projectiles at you,
Hmm.
and then you see your buddy in the distance. He's about to get shot. You can tell someone's going to shoot this giant grenade at them, and you just take a sniper shot and kill the guy.
Right.
Or somebody does that to you. This giant grenade's going to blow up,
Hmm.
and you're low on health. You're going to die, and then somebody pops in this giant energy bubble and blocks all the damage for you. There's a lot of those really kind of exhilarating moments. A lot of one of the cool moments that I honestly think one of the best moments is during the raids is there's a fight where you fight this giant kind of god,
Right.
and what the god has is he's just this giant kind of this really tall enemy that has an overshield and a sword.
Right.
Now the way he attacks is he actually shoots projectiles at you. He uses like energy bolts, but he also has a sword. So if you get too close, he'll swing his sword into insta kill. But you can't do any damage to him because he's got this really powerful shield. So what you do is you line up five people. So the way the fight's set up is you have five people shooting rockets at him to
Right.
bring down your shield, and then you have the one person go up, and as the shield goes down, the god kneels. He drops his sword. That one person runs up, grabs the sword, and slams the sword on the god.
Well, that sounds pretty cool.
And you have to coordinate
Right.
uh, because if you have somebody get too close to him, like let's say the person you have doing the sword, we call him the sword bearer.
Right.
So if the sword bearer goes up to him and he gets too close, the boss will focus on him and kill him. So what you have to do is the sword bearer has to kind of get up to him eventually, but then you have to kind of say, okay, take him down, and then everybody shoots five rockets. Everybody shoots a rocket at him.
Right.
Now imagine staying there in a first-person shooter, and you just see five rockets
Just flying towards
just
them.
flying
Yeah.
towards him. They all hit him. His shield goes down. He drops the sword. Sword bearer picks it up, and you just see him slam the sword.
So these really good cinematic moments.
Yeah,
It's
really good
not.
cinematic
Yeah.
moments, kind of like very, very good dramatic, kind
Right.
of just like these really well scripted moments. And
Um.
and of course you have to kind of synchronize everything because once you do enough damage to him with the sword, his shield comes back up, and then that sword bearer has to kind of get away quickly. So you do that a few times until you kill him, and you have to make sure everything's synchronized. Because let's say you have one person on your group who shoots his rocket too late, the shield will go out to a certain percentage, and then if you don't do enough damage to take it down, it actually regenerates quickly.
Right.
So if one person even lags behind just like a few seconds in their rocket, uh, you kind of screwed up that turn.
Right.
So And the sword also has a timer, so the sword, if you don't have it, the sword only lasts for like a certain number of
Right, right, right.
seconds. So it takes a lot of teamwork and communication and make sure everyone's kind of synced up.
Okay, so before we move on, I got one last question about like these new co-op games, like I guess Destiny in particular. So like, and I kind of want to relate it to some of the tabletop stuff I played. One of the biggest things about tabletop gaming that like always seems to be like one of the tropes, I guess, is that you have this group, and again, not all tabletop gaming is the same. People run their sessions a bit differently. There's this session I played a long time ago when I was going to the University of Kansas. I'm originally from Kansas, and we played you know a Rifts campaign, which is a type of role playing game. It has to do with apocalyptic future, science fiction mixed with fantasy. It's a great game. The problem is that like it seemed that there was really no end in sight when I was playing that game. Like basically the game master didn't really have a conclusion in a sense. Sometimes you don't want to see that conclusion, but it would be nice to see to have a conclusion. So my question for you in a game like Destiny: is there a conclusion? Is there an ending, basically, or does it just go on forever?
There is an ending for the vanilla game, which is the original release.
Right.
It had an ending. It didn't the when Destiny first came out, it didn't have a raid,
Right.
but it had all these story missions that you did have an ending to. And then with each subsequent expansion, they added more story missions, but each storyline had a definitive ending. So and then the boss raids, when they started adding raids, you were just kind of like supplements to the story that's already going on. Um, but as the expansions went on, the raids actually tied more into the story more and more. The first one was the first raid. I would say it was, yes, it was kind of almost like it supplemented the main story game, but it wasn't really like an ending because the actual story missions in the vanilla game had an ending.
Right.
But the other releases, the other expansions, actually different. Those raids were like the definitive ending of that storyline. So like the second one was called the Dark Below, which was an old one of the in the lore, one of the enemy factions is called the Hive, and
Right.
they have a god called Crota who escapes from his imprisonment, and then the next expansion, his dad actually
Right.
invades the solar system.
Right. It's kind of cool. It's like
And
television shows. Like
yeah,
these are
yeah,
episodes and
yeah,
stuff
and
like that.
it's great because
Right.
like I said, the last expansion, Taken King, his dad actually shows up because he finds out you
Yeah.
killed his son and he wants to kill you.
Right.
So the whole storyline for the Taken King is he actually declares all out war on you. So you're kind of in the story, you're really attacking some of his lieutenants. You're trying to weaken his entire army and also his role in this war. You're trying to weaken him so you can actually attack him directly, and of course, eventually you end up fighting him. You fight him. It's funny, you fight him in the actual storyline, but then the raid that was released later on, you actually fight him as a huge boss, which is actually a very complicated raid. Which I mean, for me, it kind of broke me because I did it way too much.
Right. Right.
But it was fun, and you're like you said, it has this very big cinematic moments. These kind of, everyone's working together, everyone's synchronizing, things are going well. You're doing damage to the boss. You're you're controlling ads, which is just additional enemies that they spawn, and it all works. I mean, it's really great when you have that great group, but then when you don't have that good group, it kind of sucks.
Yeah. It kind of falls apart.
Kind of falls in.
You know, with anything, if when you do in a big, whatever you do in a big group, when it falls apart, it really just falls
It
apart.
really just falls apart.
Right.
And then people start hating each other. Like, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I like that they actually end these encounters and these storylines because you're right. I mean, why would if you playing a game that never ends? I think that was my problem. I think that's kind of my problem with a lot of
But
MMOs.
that's my total problem with MMOs because
It-
I play them and all we're doing is like clicking on something for
yeah.
endless hours. And you know what? People find that fun, and I don't deny that.
And
I
and
just
then you're
don't
not.
find it fun to
Yeah, it's
myself.
it's not your cup of tea.
Yeah, like it's like playing a game of Monopoly. I don't know if a lot of people out there who play Monopoly. There are probably some people who play it until someone wins,
Yeah.
which I think is insane because it seems like that takes forever. Like unless you're like one of
That does take forever.
the pro Monopoly players. For me, it just gets boring, and then like I start just screwing around, and the next guy to me starts screwing around. And then after we're just kind of throwing money in the air, and then it's like, okay, well let's clean up this mess and go do something else because
Yeah.
you know once again we're playing Monopoly, but there's no finish. At least with a game of life,
Mhm.
there's an actual finish. Like that's kind of in sight.
The game of life has an ending. It's
Yeah,
called death.
yeah. Or you can be bankrupt and become what's it like you teach philosophy or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're in debt for life.
yeah, you can
Yeah,
pretty much teach philosophy.
right.
I'm surprised they don't have a student loan. Wait, do they have student loan debt in life?
I think actually they had something of it. I don't know. Last time we played was a long time ago,
I think we need to
but
update life
yeah,
and include a lot of things that are not
right,
that are in our actual lives that's
right,
not in the game of life, like student loan debt,
right.
outbreak of unvaccinated children, which would be great.
It was just yeah, yeah,
But yeah, and I mean, I agree with you as well. I have the same feeling with MMOs. I love MMOs. I really enjoy them, but some of them they just really don't end. And it's. I mean, for me, I think the one thing that really got me was, uh, I would hit a certain point. I would get into the higher levels. Like I'd try to get to the higher levels to do the end raid stuff, which is that was the problem with that's kind of the problem I have with MMOs is they say, you know, as you're playing, as you're leveling up, that's one game. But then once you hit the level cap,
right,
the game really opens up, and there's a lot more stuff to do, which is you're grinding away, blah blah blah. And Destiny had that problem actually. Is you would level up, and then once you hit the max level, then you started grinding to get all that better gear. And the problem the problem that arose with Destiny is I think I kind of have the same problem like a lot of MMOs have, which is if you're not if the rewards are very are they don't drop as often
right,
or it's a very rare job, it becomes really tedious and becomes this job. And that's the problem I had with Destiny was with the latest expansion was I was trying to kind of max out my character, get them the highest light level possible, and I just never got that stupid helmet, and
right,
that was it just killed me. And I mean I'm telling you, I was doing these raid like because you can have three characters. I was doing a raid uh, with three characters every week.
right,
So imagine you're essentially doing the raid three times a week every week. I mean, how many times are you gonna do it
right, right.
and not get that goddamn helmet, which
Mm-hmm.
was annoying as all hell,
Right.
And it was frustrating, and I think that's the problem with a lot of these MMOs too is that they have to make sure that the carrot is there and it's the carrot is dangled in front of you, but they have to also make sure it's fun. And one of the newest games to kind of do this whole MMO co-op is a game called The Division,
Right.
and it's very similar to Destiny. You can actually have groups of four instead of three, but this is also a third-person shooter, and this is not Space Wizards. This is actually kind of it's real life, not real life like now, but like its own. It's current age, um, you know,
Grounded in reality,
grounded in
as
reality.
much as it
Sorry,
can be.
as
Yeah,
much as can be.
yeah.
So the story with Division is on Black Friday somebody releases a virus called green poison with
Correct.
using tainted money
Mm-hmm.
and in New York, and everything goes to hell. People get sick. It's a smallpox virus. Actually, it's a variant of the smallpox virus. People get sick, they die. The mortality rate is like 90%. So, and when you start off in this game, you actually create your agent, and the whole story is that you're essentially a sleeper agent for a government agency called a division. And so when everything goes to hell, you're activated, and
Right.
your job is to restore society. So when you start off the game, you know, Rikers Rikers Island, all the prisoners have escaped and they've gone to New York. You have this other faction called the LMB, which is the Last Man Battalion. They were hired by all the Wall Street bankers to protect their money, so they're also on the street. So you have all these different factions kind of vying for territory, vying for supplies, and your job is to restore order by helping the just the regular citizen, making sure that they're not getting attacked, they're well supplied. Um, but the reason why I bring the division up is I think they handled their loot a lot better. They actually handled their loot very, very similar to Diablo,
Right.
where uh, Destiny had, you know, had had all these drops that had different stats, different attributes, different like perks for your guns, and the armor. Some armor gave you a boost in using your special weapons or in your super, but everything felt too similar.
Right.
Whereas with the Division, they took a page from the Diablo book and they really handled the drops out a lot more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
But they also let you spec your character out however you want, as far as, do you want to have really high health and be able to take a punishment, or do you want to do a lot of damage so you can spec in DPS, damage per second,
Right.
or do you want to be a support class and do a lot of like support skill maneuvers where you're dropping healing packs, you're dropping turrets, things like that. So I think that's I kind of felt like the Division really learned from Destiny as far as what not to do, and you also got to understand, as far as console players, they're they really need that carrot to be really dangled in their face really well, and you really want those rewards coming in, because if you don't, they're just gonna move on to another game, and
Right.
I think
Right.
that's the problem Destiny had.
Right.
So the Division, they did it. They had a lot better drops. They had, they had better gear. In my opinion, they had better a way to customize your character. Your character didn't have to look ugly with the best gear, and vice versa. Like, you didn't have to have the best gear to look good. So they separated your visual appearance with your actual gameplay appearance,
Right.
or as far as specs. So and I feel like that's that's also something that was, I'm sure that was a problem in D&D campaigns, where you were hoping to get that dagger or that sword.
Yeah, and like they don't create, I guess, what you call as drops. They don't put these awesome treasures in there to kind of bring the players back
Yeah.
to, okay, yeah, let me play this again, or let me make sure we get together, because it takes a lot of like time and energy just to get together. I mean, it was really easy for me in high school and in junior high, because your friends, we had nothing to do. Internet was young back in the day, so you would get go to walk to someone's house and you'd play in their basement. And I'll be honest, yeah, we played in basements a lot. Um,
Yeah, we don't have basements in that.
yeah,
It's probably a dining room now.
right. But yeah, you want to keep rewarding players, whether you're playing a board game or whether you're playing a video game. Because what's the point? I mean,
Yeah.
like
And
um,
I would say it's probably the whole, dangling the carrot in front of the players. I think probably a lot harsher in a tabletop RPG,
right.
if you have that DM who doesn't want to hand out anymore. It's like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
who makes you go through hell in his campaign. It's like, oh, you're gonna get the staff,
right,
but you're a warrior who doesn't need a
right,
staff, or So, and I think that's the big thing nowadays with these games. With a lot of the co-op games, a lot of these games that are introducing like RPG and MMO elements, is they really have to get that player hooked. So I'm hoping I'm hoping the Division plays out. I mean, I was really into Destiny, and then I got to a point. Like I said, I got to a point where I did the most recent raid. I just got sick of it, and they're actually doing an update next week. And I'm looking at the content. I was like, you know what, it's not a good carrot.
right,
I don't. This is one of those like little baby carrots, whereas opposed to the Division, it's still kind of brand new. I'm still kind of, I'm still going through it. I'm having a lot of fun playing with other people, and the carrot that they have there is like a lot bigger and juicier, and I like carrots a lot. So
this is a good time to
well, it's a good time
to
to end
end. Um, so hopefully we'll be around for a while doing this podcast.
So yeah, thanks for listening. And if you want to get in touch with us, don't, because we don't like you. Probably should say that. You want to get in touch with us?
Twitter.
Feel free to send us some a tweet.
At Chucking Dice, and yours.
And then I don't even know. Actually, I don't even know what mine is. You can add.
We'll put it in the description of wherever this is going to be aired.
Actually, just look up my. I don't even know what mine is. Mine's at Incognito, or actually just look up Augmented Biscuits. That's my name. Yeah, and shoot us, send us a tweet, or please no dick pics. Let us know what you think, and yeah, thanks for listening.
Yep, thanks for listening.